The broadcast began with fanfare. A booming alien voice filled the interstellar diplomatic channels, dripping with the arrogance only a species that had ruled unchallenged for 3,000 years could muster. To the citizens of the Galactic Accord, the voice announced, the Galactic Empire has taken into custody 20 human juveniles, offspring of Earth's most influential military, political, and scientific leaders. They will be treated well if their parents behave. This is not an act of war, but a warning. Humans must learn humility. The screen cut to a wide shot. 20 human children, seated in clean white chairs, surrounded by guards twice their size. They didn't look scared. One girl was humming. A boy in the front row yawned. Another picked his nose, then wiped it on the armrest. The broadcast ended. Silence fell across the stars. Less than 1 hour later, the Galactic Council received a message. It was formatted perfectly, Terran standard diplomatic font, flowing, clean. Every line legally compliant to Accord treaty regulations. But it was the signature at the bottom that made several members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Elias Wren, Terran Ambassador to the Galactic Accord. Attached clearance level, black restricted. The letter was read aloud in the chamber. Elias's voice, smooth and cheerful, with a honeyed Earth accent, spilled into the room like warm coffee. Esteemed members of the Council, it began, we are in receipt of your broadcast and have reviewed the footage with considerable interest. First and foremost, allow me to extend the warm regards of the human species and to thank you for confirming the location and health status of our younglings. Polite, cordial, absolutely terrifying. We understand the intention behind this act was to demonstrate authority and maintain galactic order. We acknowledge this motive and appreciate the transparency. However, Earth has traditionally responded poorly to threats against its progeny. The translation feed hiccuped on progeny. The alien AI system flagged the word for double meaning, offspring or legacy. The term was deliberately chosen. In the interest of maintaining galactic harmony, we respectfully request the immediate return of all 20 children. Should this not occur within the next 8 Earth hours, our response will escalate to formal diplomatic disapproval and subsequently to active dispute negotiation protocols as defined under Article 9, Subsection 4. No threats, no insults, just enough formal language to make a roomful of ancient warlords start sweating. Forlac, the crust-skinned, steel-jawed general of the Galactic Empire, slammed his fist into the council table. Is this a joke? These humans are bluffing. They think polite words and paperwork scare us. Xenokai, a tall silver-blue philosopher caste from the Omatri species, rubbed her temple with a sigh. You do not know Elias Wren, she said. He is not a bureaucrat. He is curated danger. Forlac scoffed. He's a librarian in a suit. No, Xenokai replied, voice dropping to a whisper. He's a serpent wearing a handshake. Back on Earth, Elias Wren ended his recording with a trademark smile, the kind that showed teeth but never reached the eyes. He shut off the holocom, stood from his chair, and straightened the cuffs of his dark navy suit. Behind him, the war room was quiet. Admirals, generals, strategists, and black ops tacticians filled the long oval table, watching him like he was a loaded weapon. Elias turned to them, clapped once, and said brightly, well, I believe the children are doing splendidly. A woman near the edge of the table adjusted her glasses. Sir, if I may, are we truly not deploying yet? I understand the theatrical value of patience, but those are our kids. Elias walked to the central console and tapped it. A hologram flickered to life, showing a live feed from the Empire's facility. 20 children, calm, relaxed, playing a card game with scraps of alien ration wrappers. One child, 10-year-old Jamie Leclerc, was assembling something under the table with sharp focus. Elias gestured. What do you see? Children. Being unervingly calm, replied Admiral Singh. Exactly. And that they know something we don't. Closer, Elias said, grinning. They're trained. They've been trained since they were born. Not in violence. In misdirection. Observation. Code breaking. Jamie over there once hacked a drone just to get an extra cookie. He's now assembling a signal booster from prison cafeteria trash. A low whistle escaped from a younger officer. They're bait. They're the hook, Elias corrected. But the line was cast long ago. The Empire thinks it captured our weakness. But what it took was a trigger. He turned to the room. The Empire gave us what we haven't had in 3,000 years, moral clarity. An older general folded his arms. We're not actually going to fire first, are we? Elias smiled again. We're simply preparing our delegation. After all, we wouldn't want to appear impolite. Meanwhile, inside the alien prison, the guards were starting to feel it. Not a rebellion. Not violence. Something worse, an eerie kind of calm from the children. Too calm. One was folding paper. Another was teaching the alien surveillance drone a song in binary. Their leader, a tired six-eyed guard named Rectan, watched the footage and felt a cold knot twist in his gut. What are they doing? His subordinate asked. They're waiting, Rectan said. For what? That's what's wrong. They already know. Across the galaxy, the council convened a second emergency session. The letter from Elias had been dissected, analyzed, and flagged for something none of them expected. Buried deep within the document were 19 distinct legal triggers tied to ancient accord clauses, each meticulously phrased to enable Earth to initiate escalating levels of response without ever technically declaring war. The last trigger was a clause reserved for use only if non-combatant minors under Terran protection are threatened with premeditated harm. It had a name, Protocol Dawnfire. The room fell silent when Xenokai whispered it. Some council members had only heard rumors, old stories from when humans first joined the Accord. Dawnfire? Forlac asked. Myth. No, Xenokai said. Doctrine. The last time it was discussed, Earth was still recovering from its second Cold War. They proposed it in case peace ever became a leash. The council grew quiet. One member tapped a screen. All their systems are online. No signs of fleet activity. No troop mobilization. No formal declaration of war. Another added nervously. And yet 5 of our surveillance stations just went dark. No signal loss. Just silence. Forlac stood. I say we ignore them. Earth is loud, but they're still mammals on a dirt ball. Xenokai turned to him, cold and tired. You just insulted a species that survived extinction 5 times. Who play war games for fun. Who once spent 4 years planning revenge on a nation because it beat them at a game involving a ball and sticks. Forlac's brow furrowed. What kind of? It's called baseball, Xenokai snapped. And they've never forgotten the 2027 World Series. A warning siren rang out. The council chambers shook. A new message had arrived. Not a letter. A video. Elias again lived now. He was sipping tea. Esteemed council. Our 8-hour request deadline has passed. No children have been returned. Therefore, Terran diplomatic doctrine now shifts from request to notice. The next message will be categorized as response. He set the teacup down and leaned in, eyes kind, tone gentle. I understand this all seems rather sudden. But we humans, we've been patient. We've played by the rules. We even tried group therapy. But take our children, and you'll meet the side of us we hide under manners. Then he said it. That word. The one no empire had heard from Earth in 3 millennia. War. The transmission cut. In the prison, Jamie's homemade transmitter lit up. A blinking green light. 1 signal. Then 2. Then all 20 children looked up at the same time. And smiled. The guards reached for weapons. Too late. Something had begun. Something very human. The spaceport above Kaltura Prime, one of the Galactic Council's most secure diplomatic zones, had never received a delegation quite like this. The docking crews expected suits, formal robes, perhaps ambassadors dripping with titles and trembling under the weight of their species' expectations. Instead, the humans disembarked with a quiet focus of apex predators entering unfamiliar terrain. 10 of them. Their ship was unmarked matte black, its only identifier a small, almost playful symbol stenciled near the hatch, a child's drawing of a stick figure holding hands with a grinning bear. It sent the wrong kind of chill down the alien inspectors' backs. The humans exited 2 by 2. No fanfare. No security guards. No press. They were dressed in an assortment of armor and clothing that didn't quite match, but somehow formed a perfect mosaic of controlled chaos. One wore what resembled ceremonial samurai armor, hand-etched with names. Another carried a Maasai spear wrapped in fiber-optic thread. One man in a black cowboy hat walked with his thumbs tucked in a belt holster, whistling a song no translation algorithm could decode. The youngest, barely 20, chewed bubblegum while reading from a leather-bound copy of something titled Art of War, annotated by Grandma Joe. At their front walked Lieutenant Rio. Officially, his title was Special Envoy for Human-Affiliated Crisis Negotiation. Unofficially, he was the man you sent when you wanted to start a fire with a smile and finish it with a handshake, preferably over someone's grave. He wore no armor, just a Terran navy blue blazer over a soft cotton t-shirt that read, in human script, "I'm just here to help, but only if you're nice." The council's envoy, a feathered diplomat named Prexil of the Veshtu, approached them with a ceremonial scroll and a camera drone. "Welcome, Terran delegates," he chirped, extending the scroll. "The council thanks you for your rapid arrival. We hope to." Rio took the scroll gently, tore it in half, and handed both pieces back. "Appreciate the sentiment," he said with an easy grin. "But we're not here to play paperwork. We're here to talk about kids." Prexil flinched. "This is highly unorthodox." "Right," Rio nodded. "That's kind of our thing." The council chamber was already tense when they entered. The alien leaders sat in a circular amphitheater of sorts, many still recovering from Elias Wren's earlier declaration. The word war hung in the air like smoke no one dared acknowledge aloud. They didn't rise for the humans. They didn't have to. Most of them assumed, as usual, that humans talked big but bowed low. Rio took one look around, gave a low whistle, and said, "Damn. Y'all really leaned into the whole space gods on marble thrones aesthetic, huh?" Forlac, still furious from the last session, growled, "Show respect, human. This is the heart of the Accord." Rio's smile never faltered. "And these," he said, gesturing to his people, "are hearts broken by 20 kidnapped children. So let's skip the foreplay and talk outcomes." The council exchanged murmurs. Xenakai leaned forward. "You speak as if Earth intends to retaliate, yet we have seen no fleet, no movement, no open aggression." "That's cute," said the tall human in the cowboy hat, now leaning against the rail. "Y'all still think Earth needs fleets." Rio opened a small hollow projector and activated it. Instantly, the chamber dimmed. The display showed multiple galactic sectors marked in red, places where surveillance stations had gone quiet, where small supply fleets had vanished, where mining colonies no longer responded. "Recognize those systems?" Rio asked conversationally. "They used to have your outposts." Keyword, used to. One of the council members, a serpent-like being from the Felm Consortium, hissed. "You're behind the disappearances?" Rio tilted his head, as if surprised by the accusation. Now, that would be premature. We're just here to talk." The hologram shifted. It now showed footage of the children inside the prison. They were no longer passive. One was teaching alien guards a human song, badly, and with a kind of enthusiasm that made even hardened soldiers wince. Another had somehow organized a weekly diplomatic discussion forum among the prisoners. 3 had started a chess tournament. The guards were losing. Xenakai narrowed her eyes. "You're telling us these children are part of your strategy?" "No," Rio said, smile disappearing for the first time. "I'm telling you they are the strategy, and you're already losing." Prexil leaned in, visibly rattled. "You can't seriously believe a group of miners is a threat." One of the human delegates, a woman wearing a stitched cloak of old Terran flags, spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. "Your mistake wasn't underestimating our children," she said. "It was assuming humans raised children to be helpless." Forlac barked a laugh. "Enough of this. You insult the Empire with parlor tricks and psychological games. If Earth wants war, let it come. We are not afraid." Rio turned toward him, slow and calm, and said with genuine curiosity, "You ever fight a mother bear with cubs?" Forlax squinted. "Is that a human warlord?" "No," Rio said. "It's an animal. A big, furry one. Eats salmon. Looks adorable. Until you touch your kids. Then she becomes the last thing you'll ever see." Forlax rolled his eyes. "Your metaphors are useless." "They're foreshadowing," Rio replied cheerfully. The hollow shifted again. Now displayed a list of names: aliens, humans, species unknown, high-ranking council informants, black site architects, hidden operatives who had secretly worked with the Empire to monitor Terran affairs. Every name blinked red. The words "account closed" stamped over each profile. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Xenikai whispered something in her native tongue that made the translator stutter. "You knew about all of them?" Rio shrugged. "Knew? No. We fed them to you. Every name on that list? A plant. Every leak, every whisper, every ambassadorial slip-up planned." "You used your own spies as bait?" The cowboy spoke up again. "Nah. They used themselves. We just gave them the fishing line." Another counselor rose in a panic. "You've infiltrated our networks." "Please," Rio said. "We are your networks. You just never looked hard enough. You were too busy watching our muscles, our weapons. Never thought to check the software updates." Prexel turned pale. "So this was a trap?" Rio nodded. 3,000-year peace. You used it to build an empire that thought humans were the court jesters. Now, he leaned in. We're the storm. The chamber spiraled into chaos. Half the council shouted for sanctions. The other half called for surrender. Forlax screamed for war. And Xenikai just sat back, watching the humans like someone who finally saw the bars of her own cage. Rio turned off the hollow. The humans began to walk out, as casually as they had entered. "You can still give the kids back," he called over his shoulder. "It won't stop what's coming, but it'll make it hurt less." Xenikai stood, voice calm. "What is the true goal here, Lieutenant? Revenge? Empire? Dominance?" Rio stopped, looked at her. His answer came quietly. "Justice." The doors closed behind them. In a separate secure chamber buried beneath the council hall, 3 operatives reviewed the interaction. "Do we initiate emergency lockdown?" "Too late. Earth's already inside." "What do we tell the public?" "We lie. Like we always do." The feed flickered. The children's prison came back on screen. One child held up a sign to the camera. Written in alien glyphs, it simply said, "We're not waiting to be rescued." Then the screen cut to black. The alien prison orbiting the dead moon of Alice. 7 had been constructed to hold warlords, insurgents, and species deemed psychologically volatile. The fact that it now housed 20 human children, each under 16 Earth years, felt, at first, like a demotion of purpose. Now, it felt like a death sentence. The guards didn't say it aloud, but they'd stopped sleeping. Strange things happened during the night cycles. Entire systems rebooted without command. Doors opened, then shut, seemingly at random. Power fluctuations, untraceable surveillance malfunctions, and the sudden disappearance of a quartermaster's left boot had all become classified anomalies. Rektan, the warden, paced outside cell block H with a pulse rifle half-raised. His antennae twitched as he watched the internal feed. Children, organically soft, small, and supposedly harmless, sat in concentric circles. Not caged or isolated, but sharing food packets, humming in rhythm, exchanging cryptic glances. They didn't whisper. They didn't argue. They coordinated without speaking. This was not normal behavior for hostages. It wasn't even normal for adults. "Sir," one of the younger guards murmured, "there's a humming again in Corridor 7. Rektan grunted. "Power relays?" "No, sir. The walls are humming." Inside the cell, Lily Tran, age 9, placed a set of carefully peeled wires into a slit carved behind the dining bench. She pressed a button on a reassembled transmitter the size of her palm. It vibrated once, then clicked. Satisfied, she smiled. "Signal stabilized," she whispered. Darius Holt, 12, nodded and adjusted his makeshift headset, fashioned from a broken food tray and pieces of alien comm circuits. Comm's bridge is open. Encrypting now. From a nearby bunk, Sari Adissa, 15, watched the entry camera cycle through their regular motion. 2 more minutes until blind spot, she said. Make it count. None of them had ever served in the military. They weren't soldiers. But each child in that cell block had been raised under the unspoken assumption that Earth's enemies would one day target its legacy. So Earth had prepared. Not through weaponization, through education, mentorship, simulation. A few had parents in covert operations. Others were protégés of generals, diplomats, deep state AI analysts. Each child was an asset wrapped in innocence, until provoked. Lily tapped her signal relay twice. Back on Earth, a buried node deep beneath the Andes Mountains blinked to life. A string of decrypted binary burst onto the screen, followed by a simple message. Phase 1 complete. Children have control. Elias Wren, standing before a digital war table surrounded by Earth's finest tacticians, sipped his coffee with a satisfied hum. How's the extraction readiness? He asked without looking up. Nav arrays are calibrated. Stealth drones are within 20 minutes of Valis, 7. Our delegation is on standby. And the Empire? Still throwing ships into the dark, trying to trace their disappearing colonies. Good, Elias said, setting his cup down. Let them chase shadows. Inside the prison, guards stormed through hallway after hallway, attempting to locate the origin of the humming. They found nothing. The walls were silent. But in the vents, the conduits, the network of abandoned maintenance routes designed for nanodrones, the children had become ghosts. 2 guards entered cell block H. The children were seated in rows, hands folded. The older guard grunted. What were you doing? Jamie Leclerc, 11, looked up innocently. Practicing. For what? Negotiation, he said. In case we ever have to deal with unprofessional captors. The younger guard raised his plasma staff. You're mocking us. No, Jamie said with a tilt of his head. I'm preparing you. Before the guard could reply, every light in the corridor died. In the pitch black, a low voice echoed through the ventilation system in perfect, fluent Varnak, a rare dialect spoken only in military black sites. Stand down. Unauthorized use of force in proximity to human diplomatic proxies is punishable by Treaty Clause 42. The guards froze. That voice didn't belong to any of the children. In a hidden compartment 5 levels beneath the primary holding cells, a human woman adjusted her breathing mask and keyed open another service hatch. Her name was Kira Halden, former Special Circumstances operative, declared Kia for years ago. She was also the godmother of Sari Adissa and the architect of the infiltration program known as Operation Playground. She wasn't supposed to be alive, and the Galactic Empire certainly wasn't supposed to find her embedded in their most secure prison. Phase 2 begins in 6 minutes, she murmured into her comm. Prison AI is compromised. Local control has been rerouted to Child Unit Alpha. Affirmative, came Elias's voice in her earpiece. Make them panic. Kira moved like water, slinking through maintenance shafts too narrow for most humanoids. Her armor bent light, skin tight and temperature adaptive. She'd once taken down an entire pirate enclave with nothing but duct tape and a sharpened spoon. The Empire had wanted her dead for years. Now, they didn't even know she was already in their lungs, breathing down their spine. On the upper levels, the prison warden screamed into the intercom, demanding answers from the AI. Instead, he received a child's voice in response. Sorry. Parental override activated. Rectan, would you like to play a game? It was Sari's voice. The control panels lit up with animated icons, balloons, cartoons, floating pixelated bears. Doors opened at random. Power systems surged and dipped. Internal security logs rewrote themselves in real time. Rectan tore at his mandibles in fury. Outside, the stealth ships began arrival. Human craft didn't look like warships. They were too small, too sleek, almost lazy in design. But each of them carried enough coordinated AI firepower to vaporize the entire prison without breaking a sweat. But they weren't here to destroy. They were here to embarrass. Inside cell block H, Lily's transmitter pinged once. A message appeared on her small screen. "Hello, little monsters. Ready for some magic?" She grinned and tapped a response. The children stood. Moments later, the guards who re-entered the corridor found it empty. The children were gone. Not escaped. Just missing. Vanished from right under their noses. Panic spread like fire. Emergency klaxons blared. Doors jammed open. Surveillance feeds looped old footage, showing the children still seated in their cells, calm, obedient. But those feeds were lies. Darius and Jamie now crouched inside the AI core, rerouting energy pulses to the outer shields. Sari accessed the communication hub, piping Elias Wren's broadcast across internal channels on loop. Earth is patient, but Earth is not tame. Kira Halden watched from the shadowed edge of a ceiling crawlspace as Recten barked at his lieutenants. She marked exit vectors, movement patterns, and sent encrypted pings to every human operative embedded across the Empire. She tapped once into her comm, initiate final phase. Elias's voice was calm. "Is the lesson clear yet?" "Not yet," Kira whispered. "But they're close." On the bridge of the Empire's orbiting command cruiser, an alarm blared. "Prison mainframe is no longer responding." "What do you mean no longer responding?" "I mean the entire facility is broadcasting a child's drawing of a bear. In crayon." The Admiral's crest stiffened. "Is that supposed to be threatening?" Then the prison's defensive grid activated, but pointed inward. The shields closed. Communication ceased. A moment later, a final message beamed out from Valis 7, intercepted by every major faction in the galaxy. "You took our children. We sent them home. The ones you should fear are still inside." As the ship scrambled to deploy countermeasures, a final transmission played on every Galactic Accord terminal. Elias Wren, seated once again in his clean suit, sipping tea. "Dear Council," he said with warmth, "please consider this a friendly reminder. Humans rarely fight back immediately. We observe. We adapt. And when we do strike, it's never where you expect. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a bedtime story to finish. Something about a wolf who thought he could kidnap lambs, until the lambs remembered they had teeth." The message ended. On Valis 7, the prison went silent. But in the shadows, Kira Halden stood by the outer hatch, watching as each child was extracted by stealth drone, pulled into safety, smiling, waving, unafraid. The guards would survive, mostly. The prison itself would remain intact. But its reputation? Destroyed. Because the greatest humiliation wasn't death. It was defeat by children. And humanity wasn't done yet. The Galactic Empire's armada loomed like a metal storm over Sol's outer edge, stretching across the darkness like a net cast by giants. 7,000 warships, dreadnoughts the size of cities, scout vessels, carriers armed with shockwave torpedoes that could liquefy moons. And yet, Earth was still. No retaliation. No defensive grid. Just a single beacon floating near the Kuiper Belt, broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies. Admiral Vrothak, High Commander of the 3rd Conquest Fleet, narrowed his 4 eyes at the screen. "Is this some sort of joke?" The beacon flickered. A child's voice came through. "Hello. My name is Lily. I'm 9 years old. You took me for my school. I was learning to draw squirrels." A pause. Then a sharper tone, unervingly clear. "I learned other things since." Then came static, followed by music, human music, a slow, bluesy piano, and then silence. On Earth, Elias Wren stood in a circular command room beneath Geneva's surface. The walls were lined with ancient books and modern holoscreens, a visual contradiction that perfectly matched Elias himself. He stared at the data stream pouring in from the far side of the galaxy. It was working. "You think they'll fire first?" asked Rio, arms crossed, leaning against the old globe in the corner. "No," Elias said calmly. "Not yet. They're waiting for a target they can understand." Behind him, the children were safe, returned, already debriefed, but kept unaware of just how much their actions had shifted the galaxy. Most were watching cartoons and eating ice cream in a decontamination suite that looked suspiciously like a daycare. Jamie had requested sushi. Sari had asked to go horseback riding. Elias approved both. Message coming in from the council, said Admiral Singh from the left console. They want to negotiate. Of course they do. Rio raised an eyebrow. You want the answer? Elias shook his head. They're not talking to us. Not really. They're trying to talk to the version of humanity they hope still exists, the restrained one, the one they could bully with bureaucracy. And we're past that. Elias turned slowly, his voice soft but edged like obsidian. We were past that the second they put a shock collar on a 6-year-old and called it diplomacy. On the council homeworld, panic simmered behind every polished statement. Xenakai was the only one still watching the data streams, fully comprehending the pattern. It wasn't war. It wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Systematic, silent, and utterly precise. The human fleet wasn't here. That alone terrified her. Where are they? Hissed Forlac, slamming a clawed fist into the council table. They're already inside, she whispered. They've been inside. They're not coming to the battle. They're waiting for us to finish losing. On the edge of the solar system, the Armada fired. Not at Earth, but at the beacon. It disappeared instantly in a cloud of molten debris. Cheers echoed in the fleet. A moral victory, perhaps. Then every screen in every Imperial vessel flashed white. Elias Wren's face appeared once more. Calm. Smiling. Holding a paper cup of tea. Apologies, he said cheerfully. That beacon wasn't a threat. It was a mirror. You fired first. Just wanted to be sure. He set down his cup and leaned forward. You see, you never understood us. You saw our playfulness as weakness. Our music, our art, our sarcasm, all signs of inferiority. But they're not distractions. They're our camouflage. Our culture doesn't make us soft. It keeps the beast asleep. A beat. And now the beast is awake. Every Imperial ship received a simultaneous software update. Instant. No infiltration trace. No known delivery method. The files were encrypted in Earth Standard Code, titled simply, Smile. On the command deck of the lead dreadnought, engineers scrambled. We've been breached. No, worse, another screamed. They wrote this into our systems. The code's been dormant for years, just waiting. Across the fleet, engines failed. Weapons jammed. Navigation reversed. Entire capital ships turned on their own carriers. It was surgical, not a war. A correction. Vrathak screamed into his comms. Evacuate. Full retreat. Earth is not what we thought. But it was too late. From the dark side of Jupiter, a ripple of light emerged. One by one, human ships decloaked. Not massive. Not intimidating in size. Just hundreds, then thousands, of smaller vessels, black as void, with no heat signatures. Unseen. Unheard. Until now. A voice whispered across every enemy channel. Not threatening. Not angry. Just amused. We told you not to touch the kids. And then the stars lit with silent fire. No explosions. No drama. Just systems shutting down. Shields imploding. Crew decks venting into space without alarms. And then silence again. Earth didn't vaporize the fleet. It deconstructed it. Piece by piece. Bite by bite. On the ground, watching it unfold, Elias Wren gave no orders. None were needed. The plan had already been executed. Rio stood beside him, mouth slightly open. You knew they'd fall for it. Of course, Elias replied. They've ruled for millennia. They believed no one beneath them could be dangerous. And now they'll learn what danger really means. The Council's private war chamber was in chaos. Diplomats fled. Guards turned on one another as communications failed. The doors sealed on their own. Lights dimmed. And a single human stepped into the chamber. Kira Halden. No longer in stealth. No longer a ghost. She dropped the severed comms node at Forlac's feet. From your prison, she said. You should probably get it cleaned. The children left something poetic inside. Xenakai stood slowly. What do you want? Not me, Kira said. I'm just here for the transmission. A speaker embedded in her armor crackled. Elias's voice came through. To the Galactic Empire and its council, Earth no longer recognizes your authority. You attempted to weaponize our future. We've disarmed your present. And as for your past, at that, every screen in the chamber displayed hidden war crimes, evidence, witness accounts, prison logs, every injustice hidden behind the mask of peace. You will disband, or we will erase you. The council stared at Kira. Forlac reached for a hidden blade. She didn't flinch. Try it, she said flatly. I'd like to retire with a round number. Forlac hesitated, then dropped the blade. In the silence that followed, Xenakai stepped forward. You could take everything, she said. Why stop now? Kira's eyes met hers. Because this wasn't about domination. It was about correction. And because Earth doesn't conquer. She paused. We just remember. The chamber went dark. On every screen in every system formerly under Imperial control, a final broadcast played. The children, all 20, standing side by side, smiling. Jamie stepped forward. We're fine. We're home. Sari added, but some things can't be undone. Lily tilted her head. So maybe next time, don't start something you don't want to finish. Elias's voice concluded the message. We offered peace. You chose hubris. We responded accordingly. Then the screens went black. In the stars above Earth, the last Imperial ship drifted powerless, its crew watching as one by one their systems faded. And far below, Elias stood in the soft light of Earth's dawn. He closed his eyes, listened to birds, children laughing. Rio approached. Is it over? For now. You think they'll try again? Elias opened his eyes, the storm behind them quiet. They won't forget. He smiled. But if they do, he looked up at the sky. Then we'll remind them.